Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil service aspirants. Welcome to another session of Economy Explained. And in this session, let's try and understand what is the economic impact of conducting one nation, one election policy. Or in simple terms, what will be the economic benefits if we shift to a concept of simultaneous elections at the central level as well as the state level. Now, before I start the discussion, a very important announcement. Starting March 16th, we are going to launch a new online classroom program. In this online classroom program, which is exclusively in the English language, it will be a one-stop solution for English medium students who are looking to crack civil services examination. The live classes will be conducted by India's top educators, Sarmad Sir, myself, Chetan Sir, Himabindu Ma'am, Mukesh Sir, Abhishek Sir. And if you want to get more information, please call on this number given below. And not only this, we are also running a 50% discount. We are providing a 50% discount on your civil services English program. And we will also provide a 6 months extension on the course that you are going to purchase. If you want to get the more details, please click on the link provided in the description below. Now let's start the discussion. Currently what we are saying is, there is no simultaneous elections policy. That is, simultaneously we are not having elections for the center, that is for the Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies. In some years, for example, in 2024, we will have the central government, that is the Lok Sabha elections, and earlier we had the state legislative elections, that is elections for the state government. And going forward, basically in the past also we have seen this, and going forward we will also have many state elections unless the policy is actually changed to simultaneously conducting elections for all the states plus the union government. But now the question is, if there is no simultaneous elections which are conducted, for example, if we continue whatever policy we are having right now, that is every 5 years, unless anything changes, every 5 years we are having the Lok Sabha elections, and every now and then we are having the state government elections as well. What is the issue related to that? And please understand this, the discussion that we are going to have in this session will be solely focusing on the economic aspect, not the political aspect of it. So the first issue regarding the present policy or the present system that we are following is, every now and then there will be state legislative assembly elections and there will be Lok Sabha elections. Now whenever the elections are announced, there will be a model code of conduct, MCC model code of conduct. And the issue here is that if there is no simultaneous elections in India, as a result of model code of conduct being imposed every often, there will be a lot of government officials, or there will be usage of the government officials who will be put on duty for conducting elections. And because these government officials are put on duty to conduct elections or to basically manage these elections, you will see that many of the decisions which are supposed to be taken by these government officials will be delayed. And as such, whenever the model code of conduct is imposed, you will see that the governments will stop taking important decisions. Now let's say there will be Lok Sabha elections, just hypothetical idea now, there will be Lok Sabha elections in the next coming months, let's say in the month of May and June, and then in the month of let's say October, November, there will be one more state legislative assembly election. Which means in this state, there will be impediment, or there will be the government officials who are working now in the month of May and June, they will not be doing this regular work, that is a government work, rather they will be involved in conducting elections. Again in the month of let's say October, November, if at all there is elections again in the state legislative assembly or for the state legislative assembly, again the government officials in that state, rather than doing the regular work, again they will get involved in this conducting of elections. So the problem is that government officials will not be focused on, or they will not be allowed to conduct their day-to-day government business, rather they will be focused on conducting elections. That is one issue. Second issue is, whenever the model code of conduct is announced, well before that or even after that, governments will stop taking important decisions. If you want to understand this, very recently, Government of India has been frantically conducting trade negotiations with many member countries of WTO, trying to sign these agreements as soon as possible, trying to announce many of these economic policies as soon as possible. The reason behind this, the assertiveness of the government, or the reason behind why the government is announcing so many policies right now, is because there is expected announcement of model code of conduct. And once the model code of conduct is announced, governments generally do not announce these kind of decisions, because it might be that there will be opposition, or some of the parties will oppose and say that these policies are being announced just to win elections. They will go to Election Commission of India and file a complaint against a political party. So the decision making of the government affected. And second, the government officials, right, they are also not involved in the government business or government day-to-day activity, rather they are involved in conducting the elections. The third very important issue, again related to economics only. What about investments? What about investments? Generally it has been seen that around the election season, the private sector is concerned about government policies. What if there is a change in the government? What if the policies of the government will change after the elections? So, more the frequency of elections which are conducted, higher the number of elections which are conducted, that is at the center as well as the state level, there is more uncertainty that will get created amongst the private sector investors. Private sectors do not want to invest now where elections are, let's say, 2 months away or 3 months away, because the concern might be, what if there is a change in the party which has formed the government, and the same party, if they also form the government again, same party, what if they change the policy after the elections? So rather than holding elections every now and then, which is generally the situation in India, what if we have simultaneous elections at the same point of time for the center as well as the state? So that is the third very important concern, again related to economics. Fourth very important concern related to the current situation of holding elections in India is the cost, expenditure part. Because we are conducting elections separately now, the expenditure that is incurred by both the central government as well as the state government would be much higher. So expenditure wise also there is a concern. And the fifth very important point associated with holding these elections separately is usage of resources, utilization of resources, right? The resource utilization, it could be money, it could be human power, it could be any other resource. Utilization of resource is also found to be inefficient when we are holding the elections separately rather than holding simultaneous elections. Now looking at all of this, the Government of India set up a committee. To address all of this, the Government of India set up a committee, and this committee was set up in the month of September 2023, and this committee has worked for 191 days and has provided a report yesterday itself. Now, before giving the report, before submitting the report, the committee is said to have taken the viewpoint of all the stakeholders, all the participants in the economy, and they have submitted a report and they have recommended simultaneous elections to be conducted in India. But more importantly, what are the economic arguments? I am focused on economic arguments again. What are the economic arguments which the committee says, right, will be beneficial? These economic points will be beneficial if you are going to conduct a simultaneous elections. Point number one, please have a look at this. The committee or the panel says, if you are going to go for simultaneous elections, it has been found in the past. Again, what the committee has done is, it has taken the findings of one of the report, and based on the findings, I am giving you this summation. It has been found that in certain number of years in the past, when the simultaneous elections were conducted, if you compare the years where the simultaneous elections were conducted and with those years where simultaneous elections were not conducted, it has been found that in years following a year where simultaneous elections were conducted, the GDP growth rate has improved. The GDP growth rate has improved. And in fact, the committee says, again looking at the report, the committee says the GDP, in case if you conduct simultaneous elections, if you compare before elections and after elections, the GDP will increase by 1.5%. And many of you will ask me, sir, what if the simultaneous elections are not conducted? What the report says is, if you take 2 years before the elections or before the election year and 2 years after the election year, whenever simultaneous elections are conducted, you will see GDP increases. And whenever simultaneous elections are not conducted in India, the GDP has actually come down. The growth has actually come down. And the report basically says, just to put the things in perspective, 1.5% GDP basically means 4.5 trillion rupees. 4.5 trillion rupees. That's a huge amount. They have also compared that and said it is half of the budgetary expenditure for healthcare expenditure. It is this much percentage of total expenditure which is incurred for conducting elections, etc., etc. You don't have to by heart all of it, but please understand, the report says the year when simultaneous elections are conducted, the 2 year before that and the 2 year after the simultaneous election year, we have seen a rise in the GDP by 1.5%. Second, what about inflation rate? What about inflation rate? The report says the inflation rate, again we are talking about consumer price index here. The inflation rate, whenever there is a simultaneous election, the inflation rate, has been experiencing a fall. That is 2 years before the simultaneous election year and 2 years after the simultaneous election year. Just to make the point much more clear, if you are getting confused, let's say hypothetically, let's say simultaneous elections have been conducted in 1952. In fact, it has been done, but don't worry. 1952, 2 years before 1952 and 2 years after 1952, because the first simultaneous elections were conducted in 51 and 52. So, if you take 2 years before this and 2 years after this, right? So, we have seen that the inflation rate has actually come down. The CPI rate has actually come down by 1.1%. Right. Third, fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit also has been healthier. It has been healthier in years whenever the simultaneous elections have been conducted. The reason which has been cited by the report is that whenever the simultaneous elections have been conducted, there have been announcements, populist measures which have been announced, and as a result of which, no doubt, there has been a rise in the expenditure. But if you compare this with the years where there is no simultaneous elections, it is much prudent. It is much more prudent. So, fiscal deficit also has been healthier whenever the simultaneous elections have been conducted. And moreover, please understand this. The report also mentions that there has been a rising trend of announcing populist measures. The governments have been announcing populist measures. One state government after the other, or one election after the another for the state government or the state legislative assembly, the political parties have been announcing populist measures. And the report clearly says there is always a very high cost to pay whenever a lot of these populist measures or populism is followed by the governments. And whenever the populist measures are announced and the political party is elected to power, they will have to follow it up with higher expenditures. So, there is a price to pay in the future whenever such populism is followed by the political parties during the elections. What about the expenditure, public expenditure? It has been found that whenever simultaneous elections have been conducted, the public expenditure, the expenditure by the government, it could be measured in the form of capital formation. It could be measured in the form of investment in infrastructure, because capital expenditure is nothing but investment in infrastructure. It has been found that investment in infrastructure or capital expenditure has actually improved whenever simultaneous elections have been conducted. Because after the elections, the governments have been found to be focused on the development activities or the activities which will promote growth. Hence, the public expenditure, the capital expenditure also have been seen to be improving after the simultaneous elections. Right, so these are some of the economic findings, again related to economic findings whenever simultaneous elections have been conducted. But are there any concerns related to this? Are there any issues related to such kind of activity? Please understand this. Whenever these kind of reports are published, if you are writing positive aspects which have been found in the report, just try to have a balanced approach and also write certain concerns. Now, what are the concerning factors here? Are there any concerns regarding what findings have been provided in the report, again related to economic outcomes? Point number one, many experts basically say that whenever you talk about inflation, inflation is an outcome of many activities. Inflation is an outcome of many activities. You cannot simply connect the cycles of election with inflation. What do you mean by that? Please do let me know. Today in Indian economy, the inflation that is taking place, is it because of elections? Is it because elections, the Lok Sabha elections will be conducted, hence, right, inflation is happening or inflation is under control? Please understand, inflation is an outcome of multiple features, multiple events that are taking place. For example, in India today, is it okay if I say inflation is majorly an outcome of food prices? Correct? Inflation is majorly an outcome of food prices. So, what is a connection of election cycle with food prices so that we can have a correlation and come to a conclusion between inflation controlling as well as the election cycle? So, many experts say it's not a very easy correlation, it's very complicated. You cannot simply connect election cycle with inflation and say that because there's a simultaneous election, inflation has come under control. Many experts also have pointed the same feature or same argument regarding GDP also. Regarding GDP also, the same argument has been provided. What is the argument here? The report says that if you have simultaneous elections compared to the election year, pre-election year, post the election, the GDP will increase by 1.5%. Many experts say, what is again the correlation? Don't you think GDP is an outcome of very complicated factors? I'll repeat my statement. GDP is an outcome of very complicated factors. And the report says because there are simultaneous elections, the government officials will be focused on clearing of the files. The government activities now will be focused on promotion of growth because the elections are over. No more elections either at the center or at the state level. So, the focus will be on promotion of economic activity. That is the argument put forward by the report. But various experts say even if you do that, what if the economy doesn't, right, basically support these kind of activities? For example, what if there is a pandemic? Whether simultaneous elections are there or not, if there is a pandemic, it will definitely drag your economy down. And third important point is, it seems, various experts say, it seems like the report does not take into consideration the impact of external events, on various macroeconomic outcomes in India. Impact of external events on various macroeconomic outcomes in India. For example, Russia-Ukraine war, will it have a huge impact on fiscal deficit of government of India? Of course, it will have an impact. To what extent, you cannot measure it always, but definitely yes, it will have an impact in the form of subsidies that are paid by the government on, let's say, fertilizers. It will have an impact on inflation in India. It will have an impact on import prices of various commodities, etc. What if the recession will spread amongst many countries? Now it is very limited, or it is limited to few of the countries around the world. What if the recession spreads in many of these economies? Don't you think India's exports would be affected? India's GDP would be affected. Imports might become very costlier. Inflation would be affected. So it seems like the impact of external events have not been considered in deciding, because they have basically correlated two parameters, elections and GDP, elections and inflation. But before I go forward, I'll be very clear here. The report clearly states some of the events have been taken care of. For example, during 1970s and 80s, crude oil price shock, it has been adjusted for. But please understand, same thing you cannot say, right, in the future. You cannot say the same thing in the future as well. That is, whenever simultaneous elections are conducted, GDP will increase. What if pandemic is there? Or pandemic will have a huge impact after the simultaneous elections are conducted. So there are various the external factors which seem to be have been not considered in coming to these conclusions. And the fourth very important concern which has been raised is, whenever you conduct multiple elections, that is basically in different states, right, individually, and again let's say central, the Lok Sabha elections, it is generally seen that with elections expenditure is done. Expenditure is done on lot of these activities such as, let's say, rallies, such as right, providing food in these rallies, demand for transportation, etc., etc., which means holding multiple elections will also mean multiple times money will be supplied to the economy. Is the logic okay? Multiple times, because let's say a state government election is conducted or state elections are conducted, various political parties will spend money, and as a result of this, demand for goods and services only during that period it will start increasing, because expenditure is done by the political parties. So the infusion of money is done multiple times now in different states because of non-simultaneous elections. Now if you do simultaneous elections, that is only once, let's say once you will conduct elections for all the states as well as the union or the union government. As a result of this, the money infusion in the economy will happen only once. So the demand for goods and services, which will keep on recurring because of these multiple elections, will be limited to only once in a 5 year. So this is one more concern. Again, I hope you understand. Do not take my argument to mean that I'm basically in support of having multiple elections. What I'm trying to basically tell you is, you should have both the viewpoints, have both the sides of the argument, so that you will write a balanced answer if this kind of question is asked in the UPSC mains. So these are certain very important concerns which have been raised regarding the report which is recommending holding simultaneous elections in India. Now before I wind up, I just want to make one very important announcement. Many of the students, they'll keep on raising a question to me. They'll keep on asking one question repeated by many students. That is, sir, how do we prepare for current affairs? Current affairs is so wide. There is no defined syllabus for current affairs. What should I do? I find it very difficult. Don't be worried. We at Unacademy, we have announced or we have launched Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator program. That is UCAN program. This will be a one-stop destination for all of your current affairs requirements. We will have exhaustive coverage of the articles from newspapers, Press Information Bureau, Yojana and Kurukshetra, Political and Economic Weekly, Down to Earth, and the faculties, respective faculties, subject faculties will be taking these classes. Polity will be taken by Sarmad Sir, International Relations by Chetan Sir, Economy by me, History related by Abhishek Sir, Science and Technology by Himabindu Ma'am, Environment related by Mukesh Jha Sir, and the social issue related, the magazine of Yojana and Kurukshetra will be taken by Astha Ma'am. So this is a very important announcement. If you are interested, please click on the link provided below. That's it from my side. Have a great day. If you like these initiatives, please hit the like button, provide your valuable comments in the section below, and if you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it now. Thank you. Have a great day.